Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Please like, share and subscribe. So today we're going to be doing the rhombus pattern. I'm going to be starting with the diamond shape. That's this one, the diamond shape. So we're going to be using, I'll be using 4.0 for this project, but you can use 4.0, 4.5, 5.0, anyone that works well with you, depending on the yarn texture you are going to use. I'm using a 5-ply yarn. So what I do that when I'm working based on my measurement, I want to work on the crop jacket now. I'm going to use 4.0 as my 5-ply yarn. I'm working on an adult size, a long size. I'm going to use 5.0. But if you are going to be using you can either use 4.5 or 4.0, anyone that works well with you. Let's get into the tutorial. So we're going to start making a chain of 6. So after you've made 6 chains, you're going to skip the first 2. That's 1, 2. You're going to make double crochet in the remaining 4 stitches. So when you're done, you should have 5. That's this chain 2 plus 1, 2, 3, 4. Our chain 2 counts as a stitch. So when we're done, we're going to make a chain of 6 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then the same thing we did here, we're going to do it here. We're going to skip 2 stitches, then make 1 double crochet in the remaining 4 stitches. So when you're done, you're going to slip stitch in this stitch here. This other stitch, you're going to slip stitch at the edge. You're going to make a slip stitch, then you chain 2, 1, 2. So since our chain 2 counts as a stitch, we're going to skip this stitch and make double crochets in the remaining stitch. So I've made 3 double crochets already plus the chain to making 3 stitches. So for this our last stitch, instead of making a double crochet here, we're going to chain 2. We're going to make a slip stitch at the upper part of the chain 2. So this is what you should have. Then we're going to make 6 chains again. So as usual, we're going to skip 2, then make double crochets in the remaining 4 stitches. So I'm done with my first 4 double crochet chain 2. So since we're going to be moving up, you know when we were here, we made chain 2 to slip stitch here. But for here, instead of making chain 2 to slip, we're going to slip stitch at the edge of this chain 2 here. This is what we have. So we're going to make a chain 2, then make double crochets in the remaining 4 stitches. So we're done with the first part. So we're done with the first part of our diamond shape. So we're going to chain 1, then cut off the yarn. So this is now the time you are going to be changing your colors, depending on how many colors you are going to use. When you want to continue, you are just going to make a slip stitch at this edge, at this edge. Make a slip stitch here, and you chain 1. You are going to make double crochets in these other stitches. That's 1. So we've done double crochet already. So since we are going to be moving down, I'm going to chain 2, then slip stitch at the edge, then we'll chain 6. Don't forget that anytime you are chaining 6, you are going to be always skipping 2 stitches and making double crochet in the remaining 4 stitches. So in total you are going to be having 5 stitches because that chain 2 counts as a stitch. So when you are done here, you're going to slip stitch at the edge of this stitch. You slip stitch, then you chain 2, make a double crochet, then make another double crochet with another. Always make sure you're counting your stitches so that you don't make a mistake and have to unravel your work. Then we're going to slip stitch in this chain 2 space, slip stitch, then we're going to make a chain of 2, then double crochet. Since now we are going down, this one is going downward, we're going to make a chain of 2 and slip stitch at the edge of this chain 2 space, of this chain 2. Then we'll make a double crochet. So we're going to make double crochets till we get to this chain 2 space again. So when you've gotten to this chain 2 space, since we're still coming down, we're going to make a chain of 2, then we'll slip stitch at the edge of this chain 2 space, then we'll chain 6, then we'll skip 2, then make a double crochet in the remaining 4 stitches. So since we are going upward, we're going to slip stitch at the edge of our chain 2 space like that. Then we'll make 2 chains, then double crochet. Since we are still going upward, we're going to make a slip stitch in this chain 2 space, make a chain of 2, then double crochet, and another double crochet, and another, then chain 1, cut away. Since this is the point where we are always changing our colors, there's no need for you to chain 2 to go down. I'm just going to insert the second color you're going to use in this place, then make a double crochet in the next stitch. So this is how you're just going to keep repeating this pattern till you get the desired size you're working with. So this is how to do. And also it's advisable that as you're working, you can just be trimming your yarn. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.